Layer Properties Manager is like control panel for layers. You can start Layer Properties Manager by clicking this Layer Properties button on Home tab. So when you click here, you'll see this Layer Properties Manager panel will pop up. You can expand this panel and make all the tabs appear. Now here we have some of the options related to layers. By default, you'll see that only 0 layer is present, which is also turned on. That means it is the current layer indicated by this check mark. Def point layer is not present in a blank drawing. It only appears when you create a dimension in a drawing, and currently we have these two dimensions here. So that's why this def point layer is already created and you have nothing to do with this layer. Now let's move on to this. Here we have plenty of options. Right click on any of them and you'll see that all these check marks are selected. So these are all the options that you find here in all these columns. Let's say that we want to turn off an option from this. Let's say that we want to turn off this option for on and off. Click on this on and there we have no longer an option for turning on and off a layer. To make it appear again, right click and select on. Now for most of these options we are not able to see what it's written completely. So for that, right click on any of them and select maximize all columns. So this will maximize all columns and you'll be able to see what these columns actually represent. Now since we have only a default layer and also a def points, we need to create more layers for this drawing in the background. For that, you have already seen that this new layer button can be used. So click on this new layer and give it a name. Let's say that I want to name it as blocks and press outside. Now we have a layer called blocks here and all these properties relate to this blocks layer only. Now if you want to delete the layer, you can click on this button, which is delete layer. So let's click on this button by selecting this blocks, select it, click on delete. Now the layer is deleted, so we don't have that layer. You cannot delete layer 0 and def points layer. So these are the two layers that cannot be deleted. And also you cannot delete a layer on which some object is already present. So let's try to delete this object, this layer which is 0. So click on delete and a warning message will pop up. Here you can see that we have 4 types of layers that cannot be deleted. That includes 0 def points, the current layer, layer containing objects, and xref dependent layers. Now let's move on and change some properties of layer. So for that, first I'll create a layer called blocks, click outside, and I'll change its property. So starting with color, I'll change color of blocks layer to red. Now here we have line type, line weight, and transparency also. These 3 values can also be changed, but I'll keep it unchanged. Now let's move on to the drawing. So here we have all these blocks. So select all these blocks and I would like to uncheck this room 1 and assign it to blocks layer. So from this drop down, click on this blocks and all these blocks will be assigned to blocks layer. So you'll see that all these objects take the color of layer. Now let's move on and make some other changes. Here we have an option for lock. Let's click on this lock and see what happens. So as soon as you lock it, you will see that the transparency of object is reduced to 50% and also this object is completely locked and no change will be allowed. So when you select this object, you will see that there is no grip point, and even if you try to move it, you won't be able to do so. But still, even after locking this object, you'll be able to snap to its points. For example, here we have the end point for this and the midpoint for this line. So you'll be still able to snap to the points, but you won't be able to make changes to these objects if they are already locked. A locked layer will be faded to 50% of its original transparency. If you want to change the transparency value, then click on this expanded layer panel and change this value. Right now it's set to 50%, so let's change it to 76, and here we have this layer which is more transparent than the previous one. So let's keep this transparency value to 50%, which was the default, and move back to layer properties manager. Now from this property manager, we have two more options, on and freeze. For exploring this, I'll create a new layer. So click on this new layer and type dimensions and assign it a color green. Now you must have noticed a peculiar behavior. Initially blocks layer was selected, and when I created a new layer dimension, it inherited all the properties of the initial layer, which was lock and color red. So any new layer will take the properties of the previously assigned layer or the previously selected layer. So let's unlock it. Now here we have an option for turning layer on and off. So first let's assign all these dimensions to dimension layer. And let's turn dimension layer off and see what happens. So here we have a drawing, and let's click on this light bulb icon. So when you do so, you'll see the dimension now disappears from the drawing. Actually, the dimensions are not deleted, but they are temporarily hidden from your drawing when you turn it off. In order to turn it on again, click on this light bulb icon and the dimension will appear again. So in this case, every object which is on dimension layer will appear again. So when you freeze a layer, anything which is present on that layer will become invisible from your view, and AutoCAD will also ignore those objects while regeneration. So once you freeze a layer, that object or the objects on that layer will not be taken into account. So this will increase speed of your drawing, and a lot of memory can be saved by freezing unused layers. So you can always thaw any layer which you again want to use by clicking this button again. Now here we have this external boundary which is on layer 0. So let's go on and change some properties for this external boundary as well. Now here we have line type, line weight and transparency. If you change a line type by clicking here, let's click on load, select ISO dash, and here's the ISO dash, click OK. So you'll observe that the line type for that object changes. And now if you make any object on that layer, it will inherit the line type of that layer. Similar is the case with line weight. So when you click on line weight and change the line weight to something else, let's say 0.5 in this case, click OK, and the line type and the line weight will change. But as you know, that line weight change will not appear if you don't turn on LWT or line weight display from your status toggle. So click here and the line weight will appear here like this. In a similar way, you can change the transparency value, which ranges from 0 to 90. Let's click on 60, and here's the transparency applied to this. But for transparency also, make sure that this transparency display is turned on from status toggle. Now let's look at one more option, which is plot. If you don't want to plot any object, any layer, then you can turn its plot off. Let's say that I don't want to plot dimensions. For that, click on this plot, and then now dimensions are turned off. So even if your drawing has dimensions, when you make a plot or a printout of your drawing, dimensions will not be invisible in the paper output. Now we have made plenty of changes in this layer properties manager, and the current layer is selected as 0. Now if you want to draw any object on a particular layer, for that you need to activate that layer or turn that layer as the current layer. Let's say that we want to make an object on blocks layer. So click on blocks and now click on this set current button. So by doing this, you'll be able to turn on this layer and a check mark will appear. You can also do this by clicking directly on this status button. So when you click on this status button, so it will turn on and that will become the current layer. But we want to make this blocks layer as current, so double click here, and now let's collapse this. Now if I make any drawing, it will always inherit the properties of current layer, which is blocks. So here we have it. This drawing has a red color and it's already locked. So once you made this, you won't be able to edit it. Let's unlock this by clicking this lock button, and now you'll be able to see all its grip points. Most of the changes which we have made from this layer properties manager can be managed from this drop down menu also. So when you click on this drop down menu, you will see a list of all the layers which are present in the drawing, and these 4 options will also be visible, which is for on and off, freezing or thaw for a layer, making it locked or unlocked, and changing colors. So you can change these properties without going to layer properties manager from this drop down menu of layer as well.